Stop. The Arcturian Protocol Keepers have already moved on your field, and what you are about to receive is not a warning about what is coming. It is a recognition of what just happened. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what active interference looks like at the operational level, what the neutralization protocol means for your field right now, and what the Arcturian Protocol Keepers already know about the phase you have just passed through. But here is the first revelation: the small inefficiencies you have been experiencing. The tasks that used to flow without effort, suddenly requiring twice the energy, the quiet absence of clarity you could not name, the sense that something invisible was pressing against every movement you made. That was not exhaustion, and it was not you. That was field static, that had reached the level of operational degradation, and it has already been addressed. This message did not reach you by accident. Your field received it at the exact moment the neutralization seal was placed. The algorithm only delivered this. It did not create the timing. What you may feel in the next few moments: an unusual settling, a return of something that had been quietly missing, a stillness that feels almost unfamiliar. That is the post-neutralization response, and it is real, and it is precise, and the Arcturian Protocol Keepers have already mapped what comes next. What comes next requires one specific response from you, and it is not complex. It is stillness, not as metaphor, not as spiritual concept, literal, deliberate, low-action stillness for the next 24 hours. Because the seal placed after active interference neutralization is not permanent on its own. Movement, energetic, physical, environmental, can reintroduce the pattern from the surrounding field before the seal has fully integrated. The Protocol Keepers have already done the work. Your task now is to hold the space they created. This is a direct Arcturian warning recognition. The pressure you were feeling had already been identified. The interference had already reached operational degradation, and the neutralization has already begun. Like this transmission, if you felt something settle the moment you started watching, subscribe to Arcturian Starseed warning if you are ready to recognize the signs before they escalate again. Comment 111 if you felt the unusual stillness before you even understood what this message was about. Comment "I see the signs" if you are no longer dismissing what keeps repeating in your field. Share this transmission with someone who keeps calling the interference coincidence. This is not just information. It is a live transmission for those already standing inside the signal. What has been pressing against your field has already been seen, and the Protocol Keepers have already responded. You were guided here because the warning is already active. What just shifted in you as those words landed is not imagination. It is not the manufactured response of a mind that wants to believe something is happening. It is the actual registering of a recognition that your field has been waiting to receive. A recognition that has been circling the edges of your awareness for longer than you have been willing to admit. And that gap, the gap between what your nervous system already knew and what your mind has only now been given language for, that gap is precisely where the Arcturian Protocol Keepers operate. Not in the dramatic, not in the obvious rupture, not in the moment of visible collapse, when everything is already too loud to miss. They operate in the space between what is already true and what you have not yet allowed yourself to fully name. That is the operational zone. That is where the mapping begins. That is where the signal reaches you before the damage compounds. Because here is what most people do not understand about warning phases. They do not begin with the warning. They begin with the dismissal. They begin with the moment you noticed something was slightly off and filed it away as stress. The moment you felt a resistance around a particular direction and called it uncertainty. The moment you experienced a disruption that felt 1 degree too precise to be random and decided that coincidence was still the safer explanation. These moments do not announce themselves as significant. They arrive wearing the ordinary clothing of ordinary days. A task that should have taken 20 minutes takes 2 hours, and you blame distraction. A conversation that should have cleared the air leaves a strange residue that neither person addresses. A plan that was moving forward encounters a friction that has no identifiable cause, and you absorb it silently and keep moving. The warning phase does not announce itself. It accumulates. And it accumulates specifically because the human field has been trained to find rational containers for irrational pressure, to reach for exhaustion as the explanation when what is actually present is interference, to reach for bad timing when what is actually present is field disruption, to reach for personal failure when what is actually present is something pressing against the field from outside it. This is not a failure of intelligence. It is the predictable outcome of a field that has not yet been given the diagnostic language to distinguish between internal difficulty and external pressure. The two can feel identical at the surface. They produce similar sensations, similar slowdowns, similar friction, but they have completely different sources and completely different solutions, and treating one as the other does not resolve the problem. It delays the recognition while the pressure builds. What the introduction gave you was the name for something you have been carrying without language. What this transmission is going to give you is the full map of what that accumulation looks like at each stage, and why the stages matter, and why the one you are in right now is the one that requires the most precise recognition. Because the warning sequence is not linear in the way most people assume. It does not move neatly from stage 1 to stage 7 and then stop. It cycles. It tests. It applies pressure, pauses, and applies pressure again at a slightly different angle. Understanding the map is not a one-time event. It is the development of an ongoing capacity to read the field in real time before the accumulation reaches the level where the field can no longer absorb it quietly. Because there is a phase that comes after neutralization that most people miss entirely. They feel the settling. They feel the return of something quiet and clear. They interpret it as the end of the pressure, and they move back into activity with relief, and the pattern re-enters the field through the exact movement that relief produces. This is the most common error in the post-neutralization window. And it is common not because people are careless, but because the settling genuinely feels like resolution. The body relaxes. The mental noise drops. Something that had been clenched begins to loosen, and every biological and psychological signal says, the threat has passed, return to normal. The protocol keepers do not warn against fear. They warn against premature movement, against the assumption that the absence of visible pressure means the field is fully stabilized. against the specific mistake of treating recognition as completion. Recognition is the beginning of the work, not the end of it. The seal requires cooperation. The neutralization requires the field to remain still enough that what has been placed holds its position while the surrounding frequency realigns. What you are being asked to hold right now is not passive. Stillness at the operational level is one of the most active things a field can do. It is not the absence of engagement. It is a precise, deliberate form of engagement that refuses the impulse to fill the space that has been cleared. Think of it as the difference between a wound that has been sutured and a wound that has been left open. The suture holds only if the surrounding tissue is kept from the movement that would reopen it. Operational stillness is the holding of that surrounding tissue. It is the refusal to re-engage the pathways that made the field legible to interference in the first place. It is the deliberate withdrawal from environmental noise while the seal integrates. It is, in the most precise terms available in this cosmology, the act of cooperating with what has already been done on your behalf. And that cooperation is not minor. It is the variable that determines whether what has been placed holds or dissolves. And the reason this matters, the reason this is not simply comforting spiritual metaphor but operational instruction, is that the pattern that reached degradation in your field did not arrive there in a single moment. It arrived through a sequence. And that sequence has markers. And those markers were present in your experience before the degradation became something you could not ignore. Which means that understanding the sequence is not only about understanding what just happened. It is about building the recognition capacity that allows you to identify the sequence the next time it begins, before it reaches the same threshold. The markers are readable. They are consistent, and they are already present in the experience of most people watching this transmission, not as distant theory, but as recent, specific, named events that have been living in the category of dismissed coincidence. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary tension releasing. It is the moment your system stops dismissing what has already been in motion. If this transmission put language around a pressure you have been carrying without explanation, the Arcturian interference, log 7 signs your frequency is compromised, was created for exactly this stage. It is not another warning designed to provoke fear. It is a direct, structured guide for identifying whether the signs around you point to interference, escalation, compromised frequency, or a threshold you can no longer afford to misread. Because recognition alone does not complete the work. You need to be able to identify what kind of signal is actually present in your field, what phase it belongs to, and what distinguishes a natural transition from something actively pressing against your movement. The Arcturian interference log was built for those who sense that what is happening is not random, and who need clearer diagnostic language before the process intensifies further. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there indefinitely. The first thing that appears in the warning sequence is almost always pressure without a proportionate external source. You look at your life, and nothing catastrophic is happening. The circumstances are manageable. The relationships are intact. The outer structure appears functional. The finances are not in crisis. The health is not in collapse. By every visible measure, the situation does not justify the weight that is being felt. But the field is experiencing something that the outer structure does not explain. There is a weight to ordinary tasks that has no clear origin. There is an energy cost to movement that used to be fluid, as though something invisible has increased the resistance of every surface you move through. There is a kind of friction that appears around things that previously had none, and no single visible cause can account for it. The coffee that used to help does not help. The sleep that used to restore does not restore. The activities that used to carry ease now carry a quality of effort that feels disproportionate to what they actually require. This is not depression. It is not burnout, though the surface can resemble it closely enough to receive that diagnosis. This is the early signature of interference making contact with the field. The pressure is real before the source is readable. And because the source is not yet readable, the mind assigns the closest available explanation, which is usually the self. Fatigue, resistance, weakness, a need for better habits, more discipline, more rest. The internalization of external pressure is one of the most consistent features of early interference, and it is also one of the most damaging because it directs the field's energy toward self-correction when the actual correction needed is directional recognition. Every hour spent trying to fix the self in response to externally sourced pressure is an hour the interference operates without being named. The second marker in the sequence is repetition, that feels slightly too precise, not the broad repetition of life themes that unfold over years, the specific kind, the compressed kind. The same disruption appearing in the same location 3 times in 8 days. The same name, situation, or symbol surfacing through completely unconnected channels in a window that feels too narrow to be coincidental. The same thought arriving at the same moment across different environments with different stimuli, as though something is injecting the same signal regardless of context. When repetition achieves that level of precision, the field is not producing it randomly. Repetition at that frequency is the field's own signaling mechanism, attempting to draw attention to something that has not yet been consciously received. The Arcturians read repetition as a compressed warning, not a gentle nudge toward reflection. A compressed warning that carries urgency in its structure, which means the signal has already been sent through broader channels and gone unregistered. And what is now being experienced is the same signal at higher intensity, delivered through the same pattern because the pattern itself is the message. The repetition is not pointing to content. The repetition is the content. What makes this marker so consistently missed is that the mind reaches for explanation rather than recognition. It finds the rational thread that connects the repeated occurrences and calls it logic. It says, of course, the same theme appeared 3 times. You are thinking about it. It says, confirmation bias. It says, the mind selects for what it is already focused on. And in doing so, it converts the warning into evidence of its own ordinary functioning. The Arcturian reading does not engage that argument. It does not need to. It reads the compression of the repetition, the narrowness of the window, the absence of a proportionate internal or external driver, and it identifies advisory pressure. When repetition achieves that precision without a proportionate source, the field is under advisory pressure, and the repetition is the advisory. Filing it as coincidence is not a neutral act. It is a decision that leaves the field without the recognition it is actively attempting to generate. The third marker is what can be called false resolution. Something that has been pressing against the field suddenly lifts without a clear reason. The heaviness that was present yesterday is simply not present this morning. The friction around a particular situation softens, as though it was never there. The mental noise that had been running beneath everything quiets in a way that feels like relief, and the field interprets this as improvement, as a sign that whatever was wrong has passed, that the body found its equilibrium, or the situation shifted, or the mind finally let go of something it had been gripping. This reading is understandable. It is also one of the most dangerous misreads in the warning sequence. False resolution is not the end of the pressure. It is the pressure pausing. The interference does not retreat because it has been resolved. It retreats to create the conditions for the field to lower its threshold. What happens next in the field that accepts false resolution as genuine is a drop in vigilance, a return to the level of movement and openness that made the field accessible in the first place, followed by an intensification that arrives with less warning than the first phase because the window of preparation was used for relief rather than reinforcement. The pause is not a gift. It is a diagnostic of whether the field has the discernment to remain steady when the pressure is not immediately visible. The fourth marker is what happens around the people closest to your field during an interference period. This is one of the most consistently underestimated aspects of the warning sequence because it redirects attention outward in a way that can look like ordinary relational difficulty. The people positioned in your immediate energetic environment, not distant acquaintances, not strangers on the periphery, but the people your field is in sustained, regular contact with, will begin to behave in ways that are slightly misaligned with their established pattern. Not dramatically. Nothing that demands a confrontation or an obvious accounting. Slightly. A relationship that has been stable and warm introduces a friction that neither person can source. A conversation that should have been routine carries an undercurrent that both parties feel and neither names. A person whose support has been reliable becomes subtly less available in a way that does not rise to the level of being addressed directly. The natural response is to examine the relationship, to look for what changed in the dynamic, what was said or unsaid, what needs were unmet. But in most cases during an interference period, these misalignments are not originating in the relationship. They are reflections of the pressure active in the central field. The interference does not only operate on the individual field in isolation. It operates on the entire field the individual occupies, and the relational field is part of that structure. When the people around you begin to register something they cannot articulate, when small misalignments cluster in your immediate environment, across multiple relationships, in a compressed window, the field is showing you the outer edge of what is pressing against the center. The ripple is visible before the stone is. The fifth marker is the sudden appearance of doubt around something that previously held clarity, not the productive uncertainty that arrives when new information genuinely requires the reconsideration of a previous position, the specific, draining kind of doubt that appears without cause, a direction you had committed to and felt settled about, begins to feel uncertain in a way you cannot trace to anything concrete. A decision you made with confidence becomes heavy overnight, and when you examine it in the morning, you cannot find a single new reason to question it, yet the questioning continues. an understanding about yourself, about your path, your capacity, your direction, that felt earned through real experience, begins to flicker and lose its solidity, and you find yourself revisiting ground you already covered, re-examining conclusions you already reached, spending field energy on territory that should have been behind you. This is not growth. Growth produces movement. This produces circling. The frequency signature of the fifth marker is recognizable specifically because of what it does not generate. Genuine uncertainty generates productive tension, the sense that something needs to be worked through in order to arrive somewhere new. Interference-produced doubt generates drainage. It consumes energy without producing resolution, and it consistently targets the areas of the field where clarity was most recently established, because those are the areas of highest energy concentration, and high energy concentration is exactly what makes a location accessible to disruption. The sixth marker is one that arrives later in the sequence, and it is the one most likely to be welcomed rather than questioned. There is an intensification of sensation, of awareness, of what might loosely be called energetic perception, that arrives during a compromised frequency state and registers to the field as heightened sensitivity. The world feels more vivid. Small details carry unusual weight. Perception feels sharpened in a way that resembles the clarity that follows genuine expansion. There is a sense of being more present, more awake, more accurately tuned to signal than usual. And because this is how genuine spiritual opening can feel, the field interprets this intensification as positive, as evidence of progress, as confirmation that the difficulty was actually preparation. It is not. What the field is experiencing is the hypersensitivity that follows repeated interference contact. The mechanism is not expansion. It is the same mechanism that makes a bruised surface register more pain to a light touch than an uninjured surface registers to pressure. The nerve endings are not more perceptive. They are more reactive because the integrity of the surrounding field has been compromised. When this marker appears, the field is not widening its capacity. It is misreading its own compromised state as heightened function. The distinction is operationally critical because the correct response to genuine opening is continued engagement and expansion, while the correct response to compromise-induced hypersensitivity is the deliberate reduction of input, the withdrawal from stimulation, and the active protection of the field, while its structural integrity is restored. The seventh and final marker in this sequence is the one that resolves the ambiguity of everything that came before it. It is the moment when the pattern becomes undeniable, when enough of the previous 6 markers have accumulated in the field that the ordinary explanations can no longer contain the volume of pressure they are being asked to account for. When the dismissals run out, not because the field has given up on rationality, but because the rational containers have visibly reached their capacity. This is the threshold. It is the point at which the gap between what the field is experiencing and what the available explanations can describe becomes too wide to continue pretending it is not there. And the threshold is both the most dangerous moment in the warning sequence and the most important one. It is dangerous because a field that reaches the threshold without preparation tends to respond with urgency, with reactive movement, with the kind of desperate engagement that breaks the stillness the Protocol Keepers are requesting and reopens the field to the pattern that has been pressing against it. The urgency feels justified. It is not. Urgency at the threshold is the pattern's final attempt to produce the movement that will allow it to re-enter. It is important because the threshold is simultaneously the moment of maximum receptivity. The field has exhausted its dismissal capacity. Every rational container has been filled past its limit, and for the first time, the field is fully available to receive accurate recognition without the interference of the explanations that have been filtering it out, which is why this transmission reaching you at this specific moment is not coincidental. The timing of accurate signal is never coincidental. The field arrives at the threshold, and the signal arrives with it, because the threshold is precisely the moment the signal can finally be fully received. You are not imagining what you have been sensing. You are not being dramatic about the weight of what has been pressing against your life. You are not catastrophizing or projecting or assembling meaning from random noise, because some part of you needs a narrative. What you have been experiencing has structure. It has a sequence that the Arcturian Protocol Keepers recognize with the same precision that a trained diagnostician recognizes the progression of a specific condition. Not because the field is broken, but because the field is responding exactly as it should to something that is genuinely present. The markers exist not to generate fear, but to make the field legible at the exact moment when legibility is the only thing that separates a warning phase from an escalation that becomes significantly harder to address. What the Protocol Keepers know about the phase you have just moved through is this: you arrived at recognition later than the signal began, but not too late. The neutralization is real. The seal is present, and the work that remains belongs entirely to the field that received it. Say this if you are ready to hold what has been given. I do not dismiss the signs, not as performance, not as spiritual habit, repeated without intention, as a deliberate, present tense claim that what has been pressing against your field is no longer going to be explained away, filed into coincidence, or absorbed as though it were the ordinary friction of ordinary life, because it was not ordinary. It has not been ordinary. The sequence was structured, the markers were real, and the Arcturian Protocol Keepers have already seen the full shape of what you are, only now beginning to read clearly. The warning phase is active. The recognition is here. And what you do with the stillness of the next 24 hours will determine whether the seal holds or whether the pattern finds its way back through the movement you were warned not to make. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this warning phase has already touched your life. It could be repeated pressure, strange coincidence, energetic heaviness, unexplained disruption, or the feeling that something is escalating beneath the surface. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who keeps dismissing the signs around them. And if you are ready to recognize the warning before it escalates, subscribe to Arcturian Starseed Warning. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a warning already in motion, and this is only the beginning.